All right, it is 5:35 and we are going to kick things off. So I'll start by just saying thank you to everybody who's tuning in to the webinar, and to anyone that was registered for last week. We do apologize for postponing this. There was a technical error, which was, if we really want to be truthful, was a user error on my part. Turns out the Matterport iPhone app only uploads these Matterport tours when you are actively using the app. So when you click upload and then get distracted and do something else on your phone, it never gets uploaded. So we had to postpone because we didn't have the 360 tour to use, but we do have it tonight, and we are going to do what we intended to do last week. So thank you for being patient and everyone joining us nonetheless. So for those that don't know me, my name is Chris Lee. I'm head of design and development at Backyard ADUs, a company that myself and a few co-founders started about just over a year and a half ago, in order to help homeowners build small homes in their backyards as rentals, and for parents, and really to kind of, and it's evolved to really trying to find ways to put pressure on the cost of construction and help more people build small, efficient homes. Now, on the call with us today, Alexis Bellis, who's the head of our marketing and community engagement. Alexis, if you want to run down what you're going to be doing tonight and give everyone a note about how to participate.
Yes, thanks, Chris. So tonight I'm going to kind of be your voices. So if you want to throw any questions that you have into the Q&A or chat, I will then ask those to Chris so that he can stay on point and show on the Matterport where we are in the space and that sort of thing. So he's going to give us a quick run through and tour of the house. And then after that, we'll pause and answer all of the questions that you guys might have. Feel free to throw questions in at any time though, but questions will all be answered at once.
All right, thanks, Alexis. All right, everybody, let's dive right into this. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen. And I guess actually step back a quick. So we're going to look at the house in Matterport. We can talk about any design questions that people have. We can talk about costs to build it. We can talk about what kind of customizations we have. We're going to restrain a little bit from talking about the rules, just because we've got people on the call from Western Massachusetts, from Cape Cod, from Maine. I think we've got some people in from New Hampshire, and answering questions about the rules in Cape Cod doesn't matter to someone in Western Massachusetts. So we'll have a different event for that. So we'll focus on design and all that awesome stuff. So let me share my screen. I'll start with just showing a picture of this house. Share screen. I'm going to share my whole desktop here. And I'm going to put a picture of it on the from the outside. So one of the really neat things about this house is that it was built in Whately, Massachusetts, which, if you read their zoning bylaw, doesn't obviously allow detached ADUs. But we were able to make a really neat argument and case for the zoning board, and got this approved for the homeowner who is building it for a family member. I just say that because we won't go into too details, because I did say we're not going to get too much into the rules, but getting approval for ADUs has a lot to do with politics. It has a lot to do with what's written in the zoning bylaw. It has a lot to do with who your neighbors are. So usually, a lot of times, if there's a will, there's a way. But back to the house and the design. So we're looking at this from the outside, and this is a version. This is a house that comes from our straight line design path, which basically just means that we're designing in a rectangle. And it is the most cost-effective design platform because we're able to do a whole lot of work off-site, and it arrives mostly done. So it's a very fast project, and it's a very efficient project. The neat thing about this one, though, it has a deck. So that was something that was added in. That was something added into the project, and really transforms the house to make it look neat. It creates some outdoor space, and on the out in front of this deck, there's actually a really nice pool area. So that covered porch is a place where you can sit and hang out and look at the pool. Another neat thing while we're looking at the outside of this, this house is steps away from our typical design pattern, and we did instead of doing your typical white trim, we did a gray trim to go off this grayish blue siding. And it was that was one of my favorite things about this house. And I was happy that the homeowner wanted to do that because it really came out quite nice and has that a very different look. It has that more it's not 100% traditional New England, but it layers in something that's just a little bit more modern. And this is a quick look at it from the pool. And I think this pool is getting opened in the next at some point in May, and we're going to be back over there to get photos after this fence is redone and connected to the house, and the perennials come in, and our Goshen stone stepping stone path is put in, so everyone can see the true finished product. Okay, so let's jump into the Matterport. Oh, and as I'm sharing my screen, I just realized we didn't say anything to everyone on Facebook. So if you are watching this on Facebook Live, thank you very much. And we won't be keeping an eye on comments and things on Facebook. So if we don't answer you, we're sorry. But if you do want to join the webinar, you can transition from Facebook and join us in the webinar. All right, so now we're going to dive into Matterport. So Matterport is just 360 camera technology. It's a really neat piece of equipment that we take in, and it uses LiDAR to actually measure the entire inside of the house and create a 3D space. And we're going to be sending the link around to this so everyone can kind of explore this at their own pace. Take measurements of the space to see if they could fit furniture, and you can actually, with this tool, you can go in here and I'll show you. I usually break it when I do this, but and here we go. I already don't know what I'm doing. Exit out of that. Anyway, you can go in here and measure walls on this, which is a neat feature if you're trying to plan space. Okay, so we are inside of the living room kitchen area in here. And as I said before, this is a exterior wall to exterior wall, 525 square feet, 1-bedroom home that is really allowed in most town, really any town that allows detached ADUs. And this space, one of the things that we did differently in this space was design it so it would work well with the ensuite pool and serve potentially multiple purposes. So the initial use of this is going to be the homeowner's brother to live in, but we also saw the potential of this space being used as a pool house. So we did things like, instead of, we put a little bit less storage in it and created a bigger space here off suite the deck, and created a kitchen that could be used as a bar as well. And obviously this kitchen doesn't have appliances in yet, but we planned this kitchen to have miniature appliances to save space. So there's a 24-inch stove that goes in here. You can get a 24-inch above stove hood vent, which does vent outside. And then this space here, you can do a 24-inch fridge and up to a 28-inch fridge. fits on this end. Sliding door is kind of neat in here. Well, it's not neat, it's a sliding door. But one thing, if you're planning doorways, you're always thinking about the path of walking and what the door is interacting with. So this door specifically slides this way. So if somebody's coming in, they don't have to go bump into the island and end up interrupting somebody who's either cooking dinner or possibly pretending to be a bartender and entertaining. So we got lots of windows in here on all three sides. That's something that we're always looking to do whenever possible. And when you're designing a small home, it's usually possible. And as you can see, when you have them on all three sides, when you're standing in it, as you move your head, you're going to always have a view going in different directions. And one of the neat things about this property, you can kind of see out of the windows. There's a whole ton of privacy. So you're not looking at it in anyone's backyard. It's a very private space. In this, so we've got this set up so you can get full-size furniture in here. You could even potentially do a big sectional that is against both of these walls, which would be great if you're using this to entertain or as a pool house or as an Airbnb. And specifically when we're thinking about furniture, these rear windows are a little bit aren't quite as big as this window because it's set up so you can get the back of a couch underneath it. So they're furniture friendly windows rather than if we spin over here, this is not a furniture friendly window. If you were to put a couch in there in front of that, you're going to see right outside of it. And besides just the aesthetic piece of it, if you put a couch in front of these, this big deep windowsill becomes a great place to put something down. A beverage, a book, a lamp. I mean, we see a lot of people put plants in these windows. So we are definitely not interior designers, but one of the design features in this house is this wall, which is painted obviously a different color than everywhere else, and this is just something called an accent wall. And when you're designing small spaces, doing a darker, deeper color at a far end of a space is going to make it feel a little bit bigger. And it's just a trick on your eyes on how you move throughout, how your eyes navigate from one end to the other. So take a closer look at the kitchen here. So again, we're doing mini appliances on this side, enough space for someone to work in here. And then this island provides, I believe this is, I want to say this is about 4 feet. So it's a great big island, plenty of room for 3 or even 4 bar stools and a ton of prep area for whatever you might be doing. Okay, so we're spinning around. This is, you'd call it the front door to this, but from a vision standpoint of this house, it's really a side door. It's opening up onto the side property line and not very visible from any views. This entire side of the house is not a side of the house that's going to be looked at very often. So this is coming into the front door. When you come in the front door, you've got this door right here. This is a coat closet. On the other side of this space right here is where a stacked washer and dryer can go. And obviously in here is a bathroom. And this bathroom is really the smallest bathroom layout that you can do and be code compliant. You can get a little bit smaller if you try to do like all tile floors and you integrate the toilet into the shower. There's ways to do that, but we haven't done that yet. It gets a little bit expensive. But this is the smallest bathroom that you can have. And this corner shower has a curtain rather than a door. just give it a little bit more space, and then also provide the ability to, someone's not going to fall or break the door down. Okay, so looking back out towards that front door. Again, this is a coat closet, and then on the other side is where there's laundry, and then we do have a pocket door going into the bedroom, into the bathroom, which if there's just one person living in here, this door is probably going to remain open, and that's just going to let more light coming in through that window to go through to the hallway. And that's generally when we use pocket doors, is if the door is going to remain open most of the time, and if it's going to be a nuisance constantly being in the way if it's left open. So in that spirit, we did the same thing for the bedroom. The bedroom's got a pocket door because in this scenario, that bedroom door is probably never going to get used. It's just going to stay hidden in that wall, and then it's just never going to be in the way. This right here, this is the electrical panel. And this is something we try to do, is put a cover over the electrical panel so you're not looking at it. And this is a feature of small homes that don't have a full basement. You've got to find a place to put the electrical panel that is in the living space, and you can't put it in a closet, and you generally can't put it in a bathroom. So you're looking for open wall space that isn't going to be an eyesore and isn't going to have an impact to something else. So looking back out at the living room area. All right, going to the last room, moving into the bedroom. And we can point at that too. This barn, this garage, this was something that the homeowner added on to this small home project. So we actually built that as well. And that was a modular garage that we did as an add-on to this small home. And we do usually do add-ons. We've found that if we're there and there's other projects to do, it's helpful to the homeowner for us is to get them done and include it in. And that came out as a great barn, nice high ceilings and lots of space. Anyway, back to the ADU. So again, we're in another room that's got windows on all three sides, which is fantastic for making it feel bigger. And this room, like any rooms, we're trying to design to fit a queen bed. And you can kind of see these switches here with the USB ports for charging phones are roughly at the edge of where a queen bed would go. So if you put a queen bed in here, you could get a small nightstand on either side of it. So you could have a more traditional bed layout. But if you didn't do a queen bed and you did a double, or even if you did a double and didn't mind pushing it up against one of these walls, it's really going to open up this space and leave half of the room almost to put a desk or have some other kind of flex use. And of course, there's a great view of the pool, which is going to be open soon. And there's the closet. This is I believe we're 4-foot wide closet with the bifold doors. And the bifold, when you're thinking about doors, interior doors and closets, we talked about why you would use a pocket door over a regular door. Well, when we're thinking about closets, there's a reason why you would use a bifold door versus a French style door or a sliding door. So bifold doors give you a little bit more what kind of space would you call it? Vertical space. So when this folds together, this is only coming out. This is only coming about 18 inches. So these are two 18-inch doors folded. It's 18 inches. If you were to try to do this with bifold doors, you're going to be having two 2-foot doors come out here, and that's going to impact the area in the bedroom. And our space constraint in this bedroom is space from the door to this wall. So if you have a a bed in here, it's going to end somewhere in here. So you want to minimize the impact of the doors against that bed. And then French doors are great to use because they generally fit a little bit nicer, and they look a little bit classier than the bifold. But sometimes a bifold has a really good purpose. The other thing, the negative thing of a bifold in terms of space is when you fold it, you lose space inside of the closet. So bifold doors are not a good door to use on something where there's linen shelving or in a pantry. Because if you've got shelves in here and you've only got a 24-inch door and you've done a bifold door and you all of a sudden block a huge chunk of the closet and the shelves with your door, that's going to be that's going to be unwelcome. And then final thing in here, and then we'll if there's any questions, we can start going through some of them. So down in the bottom of the closet is where there's a hatch door into the crawl space for servicing utilities. And in this house, there's a 36-gallon low-boy water heater down there. So are there any questions? Alexis, have there been any questions teed up?
Yes, we've had a couple.
All right.
All right. The first question is, are walls roofs? I think maybe they're asking about like the R value.
R value. So the walls are R30. The roof is R60. The foundation walls are R20 or 23. And then we spray foam blocks and runners for air sealing and to get those up to snuff. And with insulation and efficiency, we spent a lot of time doing research to figure out, is there such a thing as too much insulation in a small home? And surprisingly, the answer is yes. With a small home, you get diminishing marginal returns in how much insulation that you're putting into the walls, especially when you're using hyper efficient heat pumps for your heating and cooling. So the heating and cooling load in this small house is only projected to be $300 to $400 a year. The majority of the costs of running this house are appliances and lights and hot water. So by going from like say R30 in the walls to R60 in the walls, you're just using more materials, and you're not really getting any payback period out of that. So in order to get to a point where you'd be passive or maybe not need a heater at all, you have to start thinking about positioning of the house. You have to start thinking about solar gain. It's not just about how much insulation you pack into the wall with these small homes.
The next question we have is, are people buying land and building these not as ADUs?
They sure are. We are building a small home for somebody in Bridgeton, Maine and Topsom, Maine right now. And they'll be moving in at the end of June. And we're also building a small home on a piece of land that someone bought in Williamstown. We're hoping that one will be done. Williamstown, Mass, up in North Berkshires. And we're hoping that one will be ready by the end of the year as well. So yes, these are absolutely great homes for standalone land.
And the next question is, where do you build ADUs?
So right now we've got teams to do everything, our full all-in-one package in Western Mass. So we've got projects from Milford all the way up to Williamstown. We're operating in Greater Portland. So really anything from Portsmouth, New Hampshire, all the way up to Topsom, Maine area. And then we are starting a project in Harwich on the Cape. And I think we'll be pretty active down there going into next year.
The next question we have is lead time. Can you store on site?
Can you store the house on site? I'm trying to think what the question is. So if you can order the house components ahead of time and wait to build them. So like if you wanted us to send you house components and wait a few months to build them, you can do that. However, we would highly recommend against it. Once this house is built, we want to get them waterproof and on a foundation as soon as possible, because if the waterproofing and the home wrap tears, you're going to destroy the interior and get it wet. So you can, but you want to do it as you want to get it on the foundation waterproof as quickly as possible. Second piece of that question, lead time. So historically our lead times, we could have if you wanted, if you were really interested in a floor plan that we've already engineered, like the one that you're looking at, we could have it ready to move in 4 months. And of that, there's only about a month of actual building on your property. Right now, with the enormous surge in demand for new homes, the lead times are significantly more. So what was a 2-month lead time is now a 5-month lead time, and we're looking for ways to alleviate that. But nonetheless, we think that's going to return to normal over the course of the year.
The next question we have, if you're placing the house behind another, can you match the color of the larger home?
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, you absolutely can. We'd have to look at the siding. There are just some cost implications with that. When using, we typically use CertainTeed vinyl siding, which has a set of colors, and you can't always. I mean, a lot of homes have CertainTeed vinyl siding on it, but you can't always match exact if your home doesn't have vinyl. But we don't have to use vinyl. We could use LP smartboard, or we could use actual wood siding, and then just do a paint match, and then paint the house exactly what the color of your house is.
What building materials do you use? Energy efficient? Are most of these prefab?
Yes, so we do use offsite construction, and it's called modular, prefab, factory built. We focus very heavily on figuring out what activities of constructing a home should be done in a factory setting and what should be done on a building site. We use the factory because they're very, very efficient at building. They build a nice tight envelope, and they do it very cost effectively. And it also eliminates a lot of the things that cause delays in typical construction, where you need to coordinate a huge number of different licensed professionals on site when they're juggling jobs all over a region. You got to juggle inspectors. None of that is an issue in a factory, because they have electricians, plumbers, carpenters, and inspectors there. So they can build the house that you're looking at, and really any house. It takes them 7 days to build the house, and then it ships to us, and it usually takes us 7 days to 30 days to finish it, depending on how much customization there is. And this house is an example of how we split that up. We did a deck on site with our local carpenters, and other examples might be a highly custom backsplash, or if someone wanted to do handmade cabinets, we figure out what is it. We basically lever everyone's expertise. In terms of building materials, I'm not sure what specific. Could you elaborate on what question you have around building materials? Because I could talk about how it's constructed. So if you could just elaborate on like what part of the building materials you're interested in knowing more about, whether it's like flooring or tiles or the countertops or the type of insulation. So if you could elaborate, I'll dig into that more.
let's give them time to type, and in the meantime, grab a
Yeah,
couple of other questions.
yeah, we'll come
Um,
back to it.
are these homes movable?
No, these are not. These are not designed to be picked back up and moved. They ship with collapsible roofs that once you assemble the roof, they're no longer short enough to ship on the highway. Now, theoretically, you could take it apart and put it back down, but the economics aren't there. It wouldn't be worth doing. If you want to do something that you have an intention of moving at any frequency, you would want to design something that's less than 8 feet wide that can have wheels taken on and put back off. But then when you're designing in the constraints of a 8 foot wide structure. I mean, if you so so these are not really movable.
Are the door widths okay for wheelchair access, and what is the doorway width?
So these doors are not wide-in doors. These are just standard 30-inch doors. Um, ADA requires a clear opening of 34 inches, which can be a 34-inch pocket door without the interior dram, or a 36-inch door. We have not done a lot of designing for people in wheelchairs. We are working with someone right now who is they're not permanently wheelchair bound. They can get up, and some of the stuff we're learning is when you're designing for a wheelchair, you've got to know that there are trade-offs. Sometimes the person in the wheelchair or the family who's building it doesn't want to do a full ADA compliant home, because there's a lot of things in there that make the space kind of odd. And sometimes the person in the wheelchair doesn't need some of the things that the ADU regulations have been designed for. And I just want to be careful. I'm not talking too much out of my turn, because I've never been in a wheelchair and we haven't done a lot of design work for it. But we absolutely can work to make these wheelchair friendly and accessible.
What are the dimensions of the bedroom?
The dimensions of the bedroom. So off the top of my head, I believe we are, I think this wall is, actually, let me try to use the tape measure again. Click on the button to start a measurement. All right, there we go. So look at this cool. So I'm on the corner. Let's go up from the corner. So 12 feet. And then spin over this way. 12 feet by 8'7". So one of the things that we did when designing this space is we did make the bedroom a little bit smaller. Usually we like to get that length to be 9 feet, but we gave the space to the kitchen living room, just so there's more room for entertaining, so it can have that dual purpose. But the 8'7" is enough to get a queen or a double bed in here and still provide access to this closet. It does provide a tight access to the closet, but it is a small home. And when you're designing these spaces, you make those decisions informed. So you would decide if that's something that you'd want to do and have that tighter access, or if you just want to make the house a little bit bigger. Making the house an extra foot or 2 feet longer doesn't cost a whole lot more. It becomes a function of talking about the extra cost, but also about the aesthetics especially when you're designing in the straight design path, where you're dealing with long rectangular boxes. As it gets longer, it gets uglier. So that's one of the things that we talk about when adding space in that way.
How deep is the crawl space? Is it on a slab?
So this one's on a 4-foot crawl space. What we typically do, though, is it's called a frost protected shallow foundation wall, which gives you an 18-inch crawl space. It's a very efficient foundation. It doesn't use very much concrete, which is good for the environment. And it's a foundation that we can generally do in 2 days. So it's extremely cost effective. But with the foundation, it's again another choice point. We start at the frost protected shallow foundation. If you go up to a crawl space, it's a little bit more expensive, but you've got the opportunity to possibly store some boxes down there. And then you can go all the way up to a full basement where you've got all of that additional living space.
Can you comment on the roof pitch? It appears not steep. Is it enough for a New England snowfall?
Here's not steep. Let's go to an outside photo because it is a typical roof pitch. Let's bring this up. So that's a 712 roof pitch. So it's definitely steep enough for for snow. And then this front bit drops down to 3/12, which is the minimum pitch when you're doing an asphalt shingle. But you can change the roof pitch. It's another design preference and cost consideration.
All right. How many designs do you have?
So we work out a design pass. So we have, I believe we have 4 or 5 design paths, and they're based on shapes. And the reason that we do that is because when you're working in a backyard or when you're working on a lot, generally there's a shape of a house that's going to work there. And the first step in the design process is figuring out where something's going to go, what the general shape is going to be, and what the general size is going to be. And then within each of those design paths for various sizes, we have a handful of pre-designed, pre-engineered floor plans. We typically start with one of those floor plans and then make adjustments. So we almost always move windows around. We can move interior walls around. We can even make it bigger or smaller, and then obviously change the kitchen around. If you want a soaker tub, we can do a soaker tub. If you want a shower, we can do a shower. So we've got a, I don't know what the exact number is. We probably have 15 pre-engineered plans that are underneath those design paths, but the goal is to find a design path and then make a plan that's going to work for the lot and for what you're looking to do with it and who's going to live in it.
The next question we have is, could you remove the fence from the pool?
You remove the fence from the pool. So this fence is getting replaced. I believe it's going to be a black aluminum fence, and it's going to connect into the side of the house. So that's just that's a project that the homeowner is doing in the spring. So coming up quickly. And then we're matching the railing on the ADU to the pool fence. You can't just get rid of the fence though, unless your entire yard is fenced, and you've got to have a fence around a pool.
Are double hungs or casements available?
Yep, these are double hungs. And you can do a casement window as well. Casements are a little bit better for air sealing than a double hung window. And they're a slightly higher price point than a double hung window. But you can absolutely do either. And then there's lots of different grades of windows as well. I don't know if you can go all the way up to triple pane window, but again, then we're getting into that thing I referred to as diminishing marginal returns of the insulation. In this small house, it just takes so little energy to heat it to start with. Some of those things are creature comforts rather than tools that help preserve energy or make the house cheaper to run.
Could you make it a vaulted ceiling?
Yes, we have been working on a process to do vaulted ceilings in a prefab setting, and you absolutely can. Basically, we can do a 12 over 12 pitch roof and knee walls, do a vaulted ceiling, and potentially even put a storage loft in there. So that is an option, and we're at the final stages of engineering that. And the house that we built in Brunswick, my wife and I's house that we built, was an experimental house to practice doing vaulted ceiling type things in a factory environment, and it came out great. we love it. So we're looking forward to doing more.
Was a blower door test performed?
Sure was. So in Massachusetts, you have to do blower door tests on all new construction. And in Maine, we've also been doing blower door tests because we want to know where we land. And we're typically right around a 2 ACH 50. So we're at a pretty good level. And you can make that lower. So some of the areas that we do have air leakage, our recessed lights, we have a little bit of air leakage. So if we switched away from those, you could get a little bit of a tighter house. We get a little bit of leakage in our exterior vented hood vent for the stove and our exterior vented washer dryer. Again, those are comforts that are really nice to have in a small house, especially the exterior vented hood vent. And then we get a little bit of leakage in just areas where there's holes. But one of the things that helps us keep the number down reliably is that the whole house has 1.5 inches of poly iso, which is a rigid foam board product, and it's all taped. So it creates a nice tight exterior. And if anyone has a follow-up question about passive, you've got to be a lot lower than that for a passive house. But the difference in total expenditure on heating and cooling between a passive small house and a really energy efficient net zero ready small house like this is very low.
Are there any houses visitable in person to get a better feel for the space?
We do. So hopefully some of these in Western Mass we're going to have open houses. It looks like we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel for COVID and in-person gatherings. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to do an open house or two at one of the houses we finished in the Pioneer Valley area. We do have 2 homes in Brunswick, Maine that are always open by appointment. So if you want to trek up there, depending on, I don't know where the call, if you're in Maine, it's relatively close. If you're in Western Mass or Cape Cod, it's about 3.5 hours. But those are open homes. And we actually have had a few people from Western Mass come out and visit us up at the main location to check those out.
What is the brand of mini split you use?
So we've been between 3 different brands, Fujitsu, Mitsubishi, and LG. And from our research, I mean, it seems like they're very, very close in their specs and they're very, very close in their reliability. But we've been between the 3 depending on where we're building.
Are the houses solar ready?
Yes, in Massachusetts, again, you have to build solar ready homes. The roof has to be able to support solar panels, and you also have to put in a chase to get power down from the solar panels down to wherever the panel is. So these are solar ready. In a small home like this, a 4 to 5 kilowatt solar array is going to make it net zero. And again, I can't beat this enough, but only 1/3 of that solar energy production is going to heating and cooling. The rest of it is going to your lights, your water heating, and your appliance use. So you can make your house, so easy ways to make your house more efficient is like a heat pump dryer. That makes a huge impact. An old-fashioned dryer that involves a wire cord, a couple of trees, and a pulley system, and some clothespins. That's a great way to save energy. And then hot water is a more difficult one. Sorry, a couple of neat ways that you can try to bring those appliance costs down for, well, not cost, but just environmental impact.
Can you do them with interior finishes, sheetrock, electric, plumbing, just weathered in, buttoned up for others to finish?
We sure can. We haven't done one yet, but we are dying to release our DIY shells. And the DIY shelves we can more easily do outside of regions where we have a strong general contractor relationship and a network of subcontractors. So when we do a DIY shell, the way that we've envisioned it is we oversee the foundation, we put utility hookups, and we essentially leave a waterproof connected home on a foundation for someone to do whatever they want with the inside. And generally it's going to have the sheetrock in, it's going to have the insulation in, and we could omit everything else. Depending on the situation and the state, we could potentially not do some of the utility hookups, but that comes down to local building code. Some states you can't do your own plumbing, some states you can't do your own electrical work, and it is obviously up to what you feel comfortable doing as the owner and future occupant.
Can you talk a little bit about average costs and how much the cost is per square foot?
Yeah, so great question. Before we saw these enormous increases in building material prices, this house that you're looking at, it was ready to move in for about 135,000. Now this, with all these finishes, is probably closer to 145 to 150,000. And it's purely related to the run up in material costs and lumber prices. And we don't know when that's going to change. We are very, very hopeful that it comes back down, because it really puts a damper on some of the things we've done to make these fast and try to put pressure on costs. And again, it doesn't go past us that 135,000 for a small home is still a lot of money. But one thing we like to note on that is, as a mortgage, 135,000 is like $500 to $600 a month. So it's cheaper than rent on a 1-bedroom apartment just about anywhere. And if you do solar on one of these, there's no utility costs. So Alexis, what was the second half of the question? I just had a brain cramp.
Just speaking a little bit about towards how the price breakdown is for per square foot.
Oh, price per square foot. So when you're dealing with small homes, price per square foot's all over the place, because there's so many large fixed costs that don't change. So the foundation doesn't change much as the home goes smaller. Hooking the water up doesn't change much. A well costs $10,000 for a 500 square foot home, and $10,000 for a 2,500 square foot home. So for a 500 square foot home, you're generally seeing per square foot prices between $300 and $330. If you go to 600 to 700 square foot homes, you're seeing that number drop down to say $275. And then when you get up over 1,000, it's dropping down more to $250 per square foot. And those numbers are a little bit in flux just because of the building environment right now. But I would strongly encourage you, when you're thinking about costs of small homes, not to think about that square foot number, because the square foot number is so drastically different depending on the size. And it's important to note is the foundation and all of the site work being included in that square foot number, because that's one of the things that skews it. Another number that you can throw out in the back of your mind is above the foundation costs. And for these homes, pre-COVID price raises, the above the foundation costs were $100 to $110 per square foot. Now they're $125 to $155 per square foot, depending on finishes. So we've seen that just an enormous surge in costs.
What is the largest size you build?
So the biggest home that we have designed and planning to build so far is the home we're doing in Williamstown. And that is a 1,200 square foot version, 1,200 square foot home out of our Demona line, which is a 1.5-story home. And the neat thing about it is it still has a relatively small footprint, and it doesn't, when it's built, it's still gonna feel like a small home. It's gonna be a bigger home, but it's not gonna feel like your typical 2 full story 1,200 square foot home, or like a rambling 1,200 square foot ranch. It's gonna be a nice compact space. And I don't think we're gonna be going much over 1,200 square feet. If you're looking for that kind of 3-bedroom, 1,200 square foot and wanted a garage, that's something that we can help add. But we are trying to keep the actual spaces a bit on the smaller side.
Okay, so this next question comes in a couple of parts. I'm going to try and put it together. So, how much off-gassing, if any, with producers do you use non-VOCs, floors, just health issues with off-gassing?
So I'll start saying the floors. So these are a luxury vinyl plank, and they're Shaw Endura Plus, and they are certified to meet regulation for off-gassing. Now, I will say that we have not spent a lot of time focusing on off-gassing. So I couldn't tell you exactly what the numbers are if someone were to come in here with a chemical sensing meter or whatever tool is used on that. So that said, we're interested in learning more about off-gassing and have flexibility in the materials we use. It just hasn't been a focus yet. So if you're interested in doing one of these and you do want to focus heavily on off-gassing, we would partner with you and trust your research on materials and try to swap stuff out as needed. So I know flooring is one, possibly press board and cabinets might be another one. The types of insulation is a big one, but we haven't done that research. And then paint, I think, is the only low-hanging fruit in that realm, where you can get low or no VOC paint from Sherwin-Williams or Benjamin Moore, and that is something that is easy to do.
The next question we have is, can you add custom features such as a gas fireplace?
Yep, you can absolutely put a gas fireplace in. The project we're working on in Leeds, Mass, right now, we're actually doing a wood stove as a backup heat, and just for ambiance. It's got a nice glass front, and then we're doing another wood stove up in Maine too. We haven't done a gas fireplace yet. We don't have a gas hookup in these homes. And we'd encourage you to stay away from gas unless you really, really want to have a gas cooking stove, because it's just not, it's something that just in general, everyone is trying to steer away from. So and of course, a fireplace has its issues too, but there's a lot. But if you're using, but anyway, I'll get off the soapbox on that one. But the answer is yes, you can do a gas fireplace, but you're going to need to do a propane tank, or and in a lot of places there's gas moratorium, so you potentially couldn't do it off of a natural gas line.
The next question, if building behind a larger home, how do you manage merging with current sewer, gas, electric lines, and is this included in the cost of the build?
Yes, we do include in the cost of the build hooking up to existing gas on my mind, existing water, sewer, and electrical. And how we deal with that, generally we like to do a sub meter for electrical. We evaluate whether or not you have to upgrade your electric. These houses really need to get 100 amps uninterrupted to them. So we look to try to achieve that. And then water depends on whether you're well or city water. Well is a little bit more complicated than city water, but we can help evaluate that. With city water, you're just plugging in behind the meter in the basement and making sure that you don't have an old galvanized water service line that's become corroded, which isn't uncommon in older homes. And then with a well, you're making sure that you're going to have enough, that your well pump is big enough, that if you have a water filtration system, that's not going to impact water pressure or limit what you can do. And then the distance is important too, because as you run water and pressure through pipes over distance, you're getting a pressure drop. And then sewer, septic's a big one. You need to figuring out if the septic can accommodate it and if there's opportunities to convert bedrooms. And then again, always city connections are easier. Going with septic, we're generally connecting to the existing sewer line either in the basement or we're finding it outside and digging a hole and connecting it to that.
Is there a guarantee period for these homes?
So these are all, our factory partner is guaranteeing the structure for 10 years. And then we're doing at least a year on workmanship for interior, but we're generally doing longer than that. One of the things that we are developing is a longer term home warranty program where we'd be available really for as long as you'd want to subscribe to it. Not just on repairing a chipped door or fixing something that is in the house, but any other needs that you might have, hiring someone to build a screen porch or other handyman stuff.
Have you done any communities, and is it possible to create a community, tiny home neighborhood or small community that is not an ADU?
We haven't done any communities yet. We are doing a subdivision right now in Hollis, Maine, but I would describe that more as a subdivision, not a community. But we are looking forward and hoping to do a community at some point. But you can certainly group these, and there are cost savings in doing more than one home in one area because you're benefiting from leveraging the utilities more than once.
All right.
All right, let's take two more, Alexis, as we're at the top of the hour here.
Yes, that's actually great because I'm going through and a lot of these are duplicates. Do you have a Boomerang home available to see?
We have not built a Boomerang yet, but we may be building the first Boomerang down in Harwich. And I don't know, that may be available for some open houses, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see on that one. That is a, oh, and we're also building, Jack, we're also building a Boomerang in Northampton, in Leeds, not Northampton, Leeds, but under the Northampton jurisdiction. So we'll have a few of those, and we're hoping those will be done. We're shooting for the end of the year, and then we'll at least have the Matterport tours of them. All
right, that looks like all of the questions. Oh, we have one question up. What is a Boomerang?
It's an Aboriginal hunting device used primarily in Australia. No, it's describing the shape of one of our design paths, and it's a mini L-shaped house. It's basically like if you do it like that or something. If you go on our website and go to our homes, you can see the Boomerang design path. But it's like you could describe it as a V. It looks like the boomerang, the thing that you throw and it comes back to you. So that's what a Boomerang is. Sorry, I'm not funny. I'm really not. My wife tells it to me all the time. I'm not funny. All right, on that note, thank you everybody for joining us this evening. Alexis, I think you'll be sending out the recording, the Matterport tour. And we have more events coming up. We've got a Southern Maine, a general session to talk about the rules throughout Southern Maine for backyard homes. We have a small home design 101 class. We are actively trying to find an interior designer to partner with on that, because as I said earlier in this, we are not interior designers, and we'd like to bring one in to help us out. So if anyone knows an interior designer, please feel free to send them our way. We'd love to include them on our events. And then we have a rules session for Northampton coming up in June. Northampton has recently updated their rules, and as everything Northampton, it's getting easier and easier to build small houses and to create good, just awesome situations for people. So I always say thanks to Northampton, because they are leading the way in New England for having innovative zoning rules. And then there'll be more events to come. We did just get an email. I think we're going to do our first workshop on the Cape sometime in June as well. We got an email from someone down there. I think it was maybe possibly even a town planner, asking if we could help spread the word. So anyway, thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending. Have a great night. And if you have any questions, we love pointing people in the right direction and talking one-on-one. We look forward to meeting some of you in person as well. Have a great night, everybody.